Welcome to Sachs Realty's Tuesday Night Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything real estate. Each week, we deliver expert information enabling you to make better informed decisions while keeping more money in your pocket. If you're interested in real estate, this is your show. Hey, hello, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday Night Podcast. We are live. Guys, if you've never been with us before, Tuesday nights, we've been doing this for about 2 years. We take your questions, your comments. We talk about them. We're everything real estate here at Sachs Realty. This market is upside down. A lot of people say it's stagflation because very strange things are happening. Tonight, we are going to unpack a whole lot of what we're seeing in the market. Buyers are still, I haven't seen anything like this before. Melissa.
No, the buyers just don't quit. And it keeps on going. And every day we're like, what's going on? So yeah, it's wild out there. And I know you guys have lots to talk about. I'm already seeing the questions coming in. And welcome to everybody new. It's fantastic to, our subscriber base has gone up and it's great to see everybody.
Yeah, we're really grateful for that. It's like over the last couple of weeks, I think since the new year, our channel has really gained a lot of subscribers, a lot of new subscribers. You guys are reaching out to us. We love that. We're hearing from you. You're sending us emails. We will pop up our email that you can reach out to me anytime. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks to get back to you because we do get a lot, but we love your emails. We try and help you out. So no matter where you are in the country, if you're a buyer or seller, or just somebody that's preparing, to buy or sell in the next 6 months, we like to kind of keep you up to date, keep you informed, point you in the right direction. We have an amazing broker network all over the country. So even though we're just licensed here in Maryland, we can help you wherever you are. So, don't be a stranger, reach out. We love hearing from you guys. But this market is, Tonight, I'm going to talk about a couple of deals. I'm a real estate broker here in Maryland. I am only licensed in Maryland. We don't transact. We can give you referrals, like I said, all across the country, but I'm focused here in Maryland. We serve about 9 major markets here. We do get a good flavor of what's, going on by our broker network and the news and then our transactions, what we see here. We're in a very hot market here in Maryland. We are kind of situated between Baltimore and DC. So we kind of get the whole gamut. And, here in our state, it was predicted that maybe we'd see a 10% decline in our area. I have said, 10 to 20% what I expect as far as, market adjustments from peak, which we experienced here in about April or May of 22. But what's happening in the marketplace, especially since the beginning of the year, is almost unexplainable. It's a kind of a, like I said, stagflation, where we're seeing high prices, but people are still paying it.
Yeah. And it's
they're
curious
not
why. We have all the information out there. We've been going over it, not just us as a brokerage, but us as like a nation and the real estate community in general, the industry. Everyone's talking about it and be more aware. Take your time. We don't know where things are going. We're seeing the percentage drops of pricing of homes, but it's continuing. And buyers, what are you doing? It's just, we know you want the house. We know you want the house, and maybe you're just going above and not listening to your real estate agent. I don't know what's going on, but now it's kind of changed. We saw where it was coming down. We saw some more time, but now, as you said, Todd, you've had a couple circumstances just yourself in dealing with buyers, and there's a lot of people out there as a competition. So it's
my buyers seem to be a little, I have to say, I try and educate them. They seem to be a little bit more sensible. They're not getting the deals because they're refusing to pay. But we're going up head to head with people that just don't care. And I'm going to show you into our MLS here tonight. kind of give you an idea of what is happening firsthand. So you're not just taking my advice here or my word for it, but in Baltimore County, so, we're kind of positioned, on over, north of Baltimore City. So Baltimore County is a big market for us, and it's a large county. We are seeing there are about 450 houses that are in pending status, which means that they're in some way, shape, or form, they're under contract or in pending status, and not active under contract, but actual pending, where they're not taking any more offers or showing it anymore. There's about, like I said, up to $500,000 price range, about 450 houses. 250 of those houses of 450 went under contract in less than 10 days on the market. So the way we look at days on market, which is DOM, when you're looking at Zillow, Realtor.com, what happens a lot of times, and even in every market, even in the craziness that we saw, it's typical to see 3 to 5 days on market when it was really booming, especially because they wanted to wait till all the offers came in. So it's really uncommon that a seller takes the deal in 1 or 2 days on market, because technically the buyers are not supposed to see the property in a coming soon status. They have to wait till it goes active, and that's when the days on market actually begin. So when we're talking about days on market, when we're saying less than 10 days on market, a lot of times the house goes on the market, they wait a couple days, they won't take those first couple offers unless it's so ridiculously over, what they're asking. Most of the time they say, hey, we want to wait a couple of days and let those offers come in and see. So when I'm saying 250 of the 450 approximate, pending houses in pending status right now, that's a big number to say that despite the news headlines, and Melissa, that's what you were referring to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're saying with all the news going on, right?
Yeah, with all the news going on, they're saying it, and we're reading it, but it just, in our area specifically, now I know, for example, we've got Habil here, and let me just pull this comment up really quick, but saying probably your area is hotter than average because people are moving closer to cities for the end to work from home, and that is a possibility. But I know other areas of the country are still, we hear from people in Florida that even though it has slowed down, it's still hot down there. It's really hot. And, other places aren't so much. So I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting time where it's interesting to see what's happening. Things have cooled off. Things have taken some time, but it's very competitive still.
Yeah. And we'd like to hear from you. So if you, since January 1, I only really want to talk about since January 1, if you've had an offer rejected, comment to us and let us know where, and, even give us a sentence or so in your detail, because we'd like to talk about it a little bit tonight. Like I said, I'm going to tell you about a couple that I know of, firsthand, some deals and what has happened and some of the communications between the listing agent. And then really, I'm going to show you, like I said, the MLS, show you what's going on in our market, and interest rates. Interest rates, another thing that we're going to talk about tonight. Guys, we're seeing 7% on average for a 30-year fixed mortgage. And, we've had our Fed, Jay Powell, whether you like him or not. It's not a political platform that we have here. We have to survive in any market. You're going to buy in any market or try to buy. You're going to sell in any market, no matter who's running the country or the show or whatever. We have to live. We have to get on with our lives. So when we're looking at, the Fed is saying that we need a housing correction, housing inflation, known as shelter inflation, as it pertains mostly to rents. through the roof. I mean, these prices are very expensive across the country. Last week we showed some heat maps of some of the most burdensome states, Florida being one of them, Texas, Arizona, Tennessee. A lot of people were migrating, a lot of domestic migration to these states. So these are the areas that we expected to see the biggest crashes. And so we have the Fed telling us that we need a housing market adjustment. We know that rates have gone, I mean, my gosh, in some cases, depending on when you financed your house, in some cases, they've almost tripled since then. Now, when we were looking at 2.7%, some of these interest rates that we're seeing is 7%. People they're putting money down. They're buying them down points because I don't know. I mean, I think there's just so much greed in the marketplace right now. I got to tell you. But anyway, low inventory.
Very, very low.
We just don't have any.
No.
So these houses are coming on the market. The buyers are saying, you know what? I've saved up my money. I'm ready to go. I want to buy. I want to get out of my apartment. I'm tired of throwing money away. All of these things. And yes, they all make common sense. I just don't know why somebody in this market, when we've seen 40% price increases in a lot of markets in 2 years where houses have escalated so high, and we know that, I don't know why buyers aren't giving it a chance to cool off. So it's like, they've got this FOMO going on.
They do. And I recently had a call into the office with a gentleman who lives in the Northeast, and he's just sick of it. Like he's getting ready to renew the lease in March, and he's sick of it. He doesn't want to play anymore. He doesn't want to wait it out. And that's why, and I'm like, you need to be advised by your real estate agent what makes the most sense for you. But I think a lot of frustration. I think people are just, it keeps on going on, and there's no end in sight, and there's the unknown, and people are like, what am I going to do? I really don't want to be in the situation where now I have to pay a higher rent. They want to be in a home. And I think that's what's going on. I think a lot of people, the FOMO, but I think a lot of them are just sick of their current living situation, and they just want to get out of it and be able to get into a home and, take the risk.
I wonder how much of it's coming from, and if you guys are loan officers out there, look, I'm just, I hear these conversations, and I guess agents are doing it too. I'm not saying that, agents maybe, aren't guiding their buyers right. But I think, where are they getting their information? If I had a nickel for every time in the last 3 months that I've heard a buyer say, oh, my loan officer said that I can refinance later. I'll go ahead with this higher interest rate. And when the rates come back down, or I can take this arm, certainly rates are going to come down. There's two sides of this. We have what you are hopeful for, what we all are hopeful for. Look, I'm in real estate sales too. My gosh, I would love nothing better than to have a balanced market. And a lot of people say, oh, well, you guys are part of the problem. Some of the comments, you may feel that way. I can tell you that that's not the case. We don't run the charge. We try and help our client with what they want. We try and, at least I know, I try and tell my clients, look, this is what my professional opinion is. This is what my thoughts are, but they're still guiding, the bus. So when, you guys are, some people are commenting saying that real estate agents are part of the problem. I think that, it's buyer caveat emptor, buyer beware, which is something we learn when we go through licensing class. It's your responsibility as a buyer. My gosh, you're the one making the payment. You're the one that has to fix the house when it breaks. So, if you're a buyer, my advice to you right now is wake up. Wake up. Think about what's happening. If you're thinking that your rent is too high, you haven't purchased a new heating and air system for a house. If you're thinking that your rent payment or your situation is terrible, you haven't put a new roof probably on a house.
Mhm.
So I'm not trying to be belittling and I'm not trying to insult anybody, but we have to look at these are major commitments, major expenses that happen. And the housing market is so elevated right now, and again, I think we're in for a correction. I don't have a crystal ball. I know inventory is a problem. I think I heard like 1.6 million Airbnb houses that are sitting vacant, a lot of time. And you have other sites too, and then you've got vacation rentals that are people just have second homes. So there is a lot of inventory that isn't on the market. But anyway, I'll tell you, Melissa, before I start talking about a couple deals that are happening, let's see if we have any questions here.
We do. And just to piggyback on what you were just saying, Habil made a comment here. Some of us have been waiting a year already. First, it was prices are too high. Then rates spiked. The correction is coming probably. But 2 years is a large part of your life to wait and be unhappy. And that's a lot of what I'm hearing. I'm hearing a lot of like, I don't want to wait anymore. But
this is why buyers aren't allowing the market to crash.
Yeah.
And I get it. I'm empathetic to your situation, but there's so many factors that created this. We have to let this thing play out. And if you can afford it, by all means, go for it. I mean, if you find that perfect property, and I appreciate, Habil, your comment. If you can find the perfect place for you, it checks the boxes, and you're overspending, but you're going to be there a while and you're okay with it. God bless you, man. Do it. Do it. Don't let it stop you, because you're right. I mean, it is about, setting up. I understand what a home means for people. I just know that I see a lot of remorse right now. And I see a lot of buyers saying they wish they hadn't bought the house that they bought.
Yeah.
And they're stuck. I mean, they're stuck. Even if, and we'll look at some of the stats on the mid-Atlantic area that includes, several states. And we'll show you that here in a little while. But we're still up over year in housing prices, but the gap is narrowing. So yes, things are selling for higher than what I think. Not all inventory is overpriced. A lot of it is overpriced, in my opinion. But anyway.
And Todd, you've talked about, I just want to say, time too. I mean, if you're going to be in the home for, again, there's no way to crystal ball. You don't know. Future things happen in your future. You don't know. You could have, personal issues. Who knows? But if you just go into this, I think, and don't have like, oh, I'm going to have, moving in 3 years or moving in 5 years. And if you go into that knowing that you could probably be in there for a good amount of time, it's probably not as much of a risk. I know that you've said that before, and probably can feel more confident making the decision and paying the higher interest rate, paying the points down, whatever you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Move up buyers. Hopefully, you know what you're doing by now. You've owned a home. Downsizers, same thing, right? I mean, you may be overpaying. You have probably tons of equity in your house, and you know what? So you spend a little extra money, a lot of extra money. You can afford to do it. Do it. I think that's what we're seeing. What I'm speaking about being most cautionary are first-time buyers. Are first-time buyers that have not owned a home. You may have the best support from family, friends, and a great network around you. And that's great if you have resources to help you with the home. But if you don't have 6 months of savings in the bank in this time, I mean, gosh, everywhere we're hearing, eggs, $4.50 or whatever it is, a dozen, they were $1.73.
Oh, it's more
this
than
time
that
last
now.
year.
Yeah, it's even more than that.
Yeah, just an example, right?
Yeah.
So things are going up. Wages haven't doubled. So when you're looking at the payment and you're going, oh, my debt to income ratio is stretching out. And the lenders are like, well, you have great credit. You've been on the job for a great amount of time. You've been there for 2 years. You have enough for your down payment and closing costs with $50 left in the bank. So certainly you can afford it because you make a check every week. Well, that's the problem, guys. Once you put your down payment, the majority of these buyers I see what's happening. They put their down payment down and they're scraping, right? Or they're getting a gift check, from mom and dad, because they don't have all the money to put down with your closing costs. They put 3.5% down, the bare minimum, right? VA, they put 0 down on the house, right? The balance day one that they move into their house is the same plus interest as it was when they bought it. So you're in a situation where if anything happens, and that's what we're seeing. That's the biggest, that's our biggest buyer pool that has the most remorse right now. I've talked to buyers. They're like, man, I am so sorry that I bought this house. Can I get out of it? When can I sell it? Mm-hmm. You just bought it last year. You need 50 grand to come to the table, $70,000 to come to the table. By the time you pay transfer, depending on what state you're in, Maryland is very expensive to transfer a property. And
yeah. I think also, you're going to be advised by your real estate agent on if you should be going in the home. Don't forget the lenders also, everyone talks about real estate commission. Your lender also makes a profit off of you as well. And it's just something to think about, that you got to follow your gut here. I think you have to really, when you see everything on the paper, are you comfortable? Are you really, really comfortable moving in with that? Because no one is saying you have to do this today. And if you're not feeling, just take some time off. I think we need to do more of that, because there was so much racing to the finish line to get the house. And, we don't just take a breather and really follow with what your heart and your head are telling you, as well as being advised by the professionals that you're working with. That's just the advice that I would give.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we do have some questions here. Yeah, of course. We have, let's see here. We've got Brad. Prices have risen on the homes and aren't coming down yet. So why?
Buyers, they're jumping in. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. I see one of our followers, very loyal followers, is commenting here, and we'll talk about their deal for a second. We were lucky enough that they were unhappy with their agent. They let that relationship lapse and reached out to us. And, so we've been showing them properties. And, we had a property where, it was way overpriced. They dropped the property almost $100,000. And, we're not talking about ridiculously, it's not $1 million house. So $100,000 on a $350,000 house, a big deal, right? $70,000, $80,000 price drop. And they just threw it out there, 60 days on the market. That's the time on the market, or they're way overpriced. They're ridiculous. They're just throwing numbers at it. And basically what happened was, they dropped the price, and, one of my agents showed the property. We put an offer in. We strategized it. I was involved in the deal. The agent on the other side wasn't very helpful at all. Not that there should be helpful, and risk their clients' fiduciary, but it was a real struggle. We couldn't get a hold of the agent. It took 3 or 4 days to get a response, yada, yada, yada. We put in what I consider to be a very reasonable offer. And miraculously, another offer came into play. And, and any good listing agent is going to, working for their seller, when this situation happens, they're going to bounce back and forth and try and push the offers up, right? But you have to be very careful, because prices and everything. And, when there are contingencies involved, and some agents advise sellers to take the highest price, or maybe the seller, sees that higher price, they take it, the deal falls through and it puts them in a bad situation. But what we're seeing is still the sellers they're commanding the show how, no matter what the condition of their house is. I mean, this was a house that was functionally had functional obsolescence that you would not believe. We're talking about when you're looking at 3 and 4 bedroom houses with 1 bathroom, that shows you right there that there's been very little major updating to the house, because anybody, I mean, that was like 1950s style, right? I mean, this house wasn't that old, but they're the kinds of things that you expect from a very old house, or something that doesn't appeal to a lot of people because of the major expense. So we were top of the market, top comp. Our offer was right where, in my opinion, we should have been. And here we got outbid. So why is it happening? It's happening because people are getting, it's that FOMO, fear of missing out. And I guess we learned that it's like a social media acronym now that our, young people have, educated us on, but it's real. Mm-hmm. It's real. I mean, the emotional attachment to buying a house. I have to tell my buyers sometimes, like, step back. I mean, because the minute, and I'm involved in it, the minute that I say, well, there was another offer. Oh, should we change your offer?
Well, they panic. They're panicking.
It's going, okay, calm down. Right.
And especially if you're going, okay, so now let's just say this is like the second offer, the third offer. They're like, oh my God, just let's do anything to get in the house. I don't want to do this anymore. And that's where it comes in that they're like, you really need to rein them in, because then they're going to be regretting decision that they're making.
I'll tell you all a little story that just happened. And I did a video on it, and but it's an important, it's worth talking about again, because this is a classic of a buyer's mistake, that I feel a major buyer's mistake. And so I had clients, that traveled in from out of town, and we were looking at an area that, is a water community. In Maryland, we have a lot of beautiful water communities. We've got the Eastern Shore. We have, man-made lakes. Maryland is a beautiful state. I mean, we have some, our share of problems too, but it's beautiful, from mountains to, beaches. We have it all in a very small state. But anyway, so we looked at this property that was on the market, and it had just come on the market. It had a lot of activity that had hit the showings. We can, depending on how creative an agent is, we can really tell, and your agent probably can too, wherever you are. There's, a couple thousand MLSs across the country, but that's multiple listing services that we subscribe to as licensed agents and brokers. But anyway, so the house came on the market. I could see that it appeared to be active. Now, an agent can kind of fudge that activity by blocking out times, and people look at it and they go, well, these times are blocked out, but it could just be that their client didn't want to show it from 11 to 1 on a certain day, or they didn't want. So, when your agent's saying, well, it's very active, it's all blocked out, it doesn't mean that the showings are there. But they had an open house on a Saturday. And I said, well, let's go early to the open house. I don't typically like going to open houses in the middle of the open house, because number one, if it's busy, my buyers get all jacked up, and, they're not focusing. They're focusing more on the people and the comments and the things that they're saying. They're not focusing on the house itself. And if it's crowded, I mean, believe me, a year ago, we were having open houses. We're standing room only. I mean, it was elbow to, shoulder to shoulder, ridiculous. But anyway, so I said, let's go early to this house. We'll catch the beginning of the open house and kind of see what's happening. It was the first open house, 3 days on the market, that kind of thing. So we did. We went there. The agent was kind of setting up, getting ready, and we kind of looked around. We had some privacy. We had the ability to look throughout the house. Now the house was very nice. It was kind of cute, but it was small, and it was probably priced where it should have been. So maybe a little bit high side, but nothing that was too outrageous. The agent did a good job by doing this because it brought a lot of activity. But there were some interesting parts to the property. So it had a basement that you could not access. So it was a small house. And, when you looked at the square footage online, it had a area of the house that was probably like a deck that was porched in. They called it a sunroom, but there was no heat or air conditioning. No heat is really the key because you don't have to have air conditioning, but if it's not climatized as far as heat, they really don't count that as finished square footage, the appraiser. So I was kind of looking at it going, well, I mean, this is a pretty big area in relation to the rest of the house. Maybe we'll have some appraisal issues. But anyway, that was one kind of thing. The other was the basement was not, you couldn't get to the basement from the inside of the house. So there was no connecting stairs inside. So you had to literally walk outside and around. So if you're doing your laundry was in the basement, and they had it set up nice. It was a nice game room, small. But anyway, the open house started, and instantly it kind of flooded in. I could tell some of the people that were coming, and you have to listen to what's happening, but we're neighbors or friends or, other agents coming through. So, but I was seeing a lot of buyer activity. I mean, of what appeared to be, legitimate buyers. But as we went outside, the house had this beautiful, in the back, sort of like a panoramic view of the bay. And, that was appealing, right? It's like, wow, this is beautiful. Now it's winter, so the trees, but it was still very nice. But what was interesting was that it didn't look like the property was very small, and it had a lot of, on the tax record, and most of it was in the front yard. So after further examination, I was like, wait a minute, where's the property lines here? This is kind of strange, how this lot looks like it's connected. Well, I went back in and I said to the agent, hey, where are the property lines? You're like, you know what? I really don't know. Okay. So I went back outside, did some intel, found property line stakes. And I have an app on my phone, and I always like to walk it. And a lot of you people comment and they say, well, what is that app? And I don't endorse this, guys, but it's on X. So it's ONX. It's actually a hunting app. But I have it on my phone. I pay for it. It's like $30 a year or something. It's very cheap, but you can get there are many apps that will, if you're looking for a house, that have these property boundary locators. A lot of them are free, but this $30 a year, I think it is cheap. Even if you're buying a house and you get it for a year and you cancel it, if you go out, all you agents should have it. And there are different programs that agents use, but I always open it up and I look, and we find these stakes, and it looked like the property line was about 10 feet off the back. We did some further intel, found the stakes. And so one step further, the lot behind the house was actually owned by a home builder. So, here we are, potentially a buildable lot in the back. Now, it looked like this property was beautiful. It went under contract that weekend. So not by us. We put an offer in. We sat down with my clients here. We're from out of town. We sat down at a little coffee shop and crafted our offer, strategized it, and then presented it. And there were multiple offers coming in, and we didn't get it. I have checked with the agent, and so far the deal's still on, but there are contingencies. My point is that when you're out looking at a house, you have to know what you're looking at, because I'm going to tell you another story that backs this up. Because what happens is you jump to the gun to put the offer in, and you compete, and you buy a lot or a house and you realize that it wasn't what you thought it was. Now, do they order boundary surveys if you're getting a mortgage on it? A location survey. It's not a boundary survey, right? It's a sketch and estimated property boundaries with a plus or minus so many feet. So that happens at the very end, when the title work is being done, they'll order that, boundary or location survey. And what are you going to do at that point? I mean, a lot of times people don't even see them until settlement. So somebody ponied up to outbid all these other offers to get it because they were buying probably that beautiful water view that may not even be there in a couple of years. So again, just kind of cautioning you when you're out there to look at things like that. And to backside that, and then we'll take some questions. Mm-hmm. So I had a client that called me up and said, look, years and years and years ago, we subdivided our property and we sold off, it was a farm, it was divided, and we sold off a piece of property. And they said, we're doing some estate planning right now. And when we sold the property, the neighbors who bought the parcel that was subdivided had horses, and we've let them use part of the property because we didn't need it. It made sense. It was kind of an odd breakout of property. So they wanted me to contact the neighbor and draw up a lease, just a small lease, $1, whatever a year, but for the estate planning, so that something was in record writing, more formalized for this property. So I call the owners next door, and they said, well, we just sold it. We'd love to sign the lease, but we love living next to these people, but we sold it just recently, a couple of weeks ago, and call them, and gave me the number. And as it has it here, we call Baltimore Smaltimore here because it's such a small community, and just so happens that I know the buyers. So I said, wow, you got to be kidding me. This is like such a small world. I know these buyers. And so I called them and I said, hey, how's it going? I haven't talked to you in 10 years. But my clients have this piece of property that, was used by by your sellers, and we're getting it, staked out to formally know exact lines, or they are, and we want to just sign something if you want to use it or whatever, and maybe you don't. And he was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I said, well, clearly the seller said that they told you about this piece that really isn't yours, right? He said, you didn't say anything about it. Needless to say, long story short, they're pissed. Guess what? They didn't have an agent. Neither one of them. So the seller was getting ready to put their house on the market and needed some home improvement work done around the house, and called this person and said, hey, look, can you come out and give us a price? Blah, blah, blah. He goes, well, what are you doing? Well, we're getting the house ready to sell. They ended up buying it. Nothing was said about property boundaries. They didn't get a property survey. They had no idea where the property was. And there's a huge chunk of land taken out now of what they thought was theirs. Now, would an agent have caught that? I would have caught it, because in every case scenario, I'm pulling out my app and I'm looking at where the boundaries are to just kind of get an idea of boundary lines. And we deal with encroachments all the time, guys. I mean, we see, I've had pool houses on other people's properties. It just goes on and on. Back in the day, people didn't pull permits. They just built what they wanted to. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's one reason why if buyers are out there. That's just one major thing you should be doing. Have an idea of where these boundaries are, because, people are rushing. They're still rushing. They're getting themselves very disappointed.
Yeah, very disappointed. And I love your stories, Todd. They're always such a lesson in all of them. But yeah, I've been with you when you've used that app before. It's really interesting. And, you guys should definitely be checking that out if you haven't already, and even for yourself.
I'm not endorsing Onyx at all. I'm not an affiliate. I don't make any money on it. I'm just telling you that they just got a free plug.
Yeah. There you go. How about this question? We've got Sparrow. Question: I'm on the title with two others, and one person wants to buy two of us out. Do they need to refinance at a new rate to do that, or can they keep the old rate? We are around 3.25 currently.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a due on sale. I'm not a lender, but there is in every mortgage. I would imagine there's a due on sale clause if it's a not hard money or something like that. Well, they probably have it too. But if ownership changes, they can call that note. But that's a question for your real estate attorney. I would get a real estate attorney or title attorney involved and find out. I mean, it happens all the time. If the mortgage continues to be paid, you're going to be on the hook for it. I would imagine if three of you are on the loan and on the title on the loan, and one person's buying your interest out, unless it's refinanced, you're still going to be personally liable. So you're putting a lot of faith in that other borrower, to continue to pay the loan, because that could hurt you and your credit if they don't. But more importantly, it would be a little bit risky for them too, because if the lender found out about it and exercised what's called a due on sale clause, then they would be forced to refinance. But I've talked to a lot of real estate attorneys, and this is called subject to. So they're buying it subject to the existing note, the existing mortgage. From what I understand, it's very rare for a bank to call the note as long as they're getting paid. They're going to get notification that title has changed. Whether they act on it or not, I mean, if it's paid as agreed. But again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice. But there probably is a way around, them just paying you out and continuing to pay the mortgage. But consult an attorney for that. It's a good question, yeah. Sparrow. It's a good question.
We've got motorized bicycles. Do you believe that the big increases in cumulative government welfare programs are adding up to people being able to pay higher rent and housing, and is preventing housing price and rent drops?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're seeing, and this is also a very good question. We are seeing here locally. So Section 8, and I don't know about other states, but has changed to the Housing Choice Voucher Program. I interviewed the director. We've got a great video on our channel. Marsha Parham Green. She was the director at the time. We interviewed her a couple years ago. And interestingly enough, a lot has changed with the voucher program, but they are getting very cheap. I just talked to one of my agents about this 2 days ago. They are coming in and not wanting to give landlords these rates that they're charging. So I can't speak for every state, but I think here locally we are seeing, and I've seen it personally because I've rented to tenants that have vouchers, and they used to be very loose, a lot looser than what they have been tightening over the last several years. And I'll give you an example. And we'll use Baltimore City because it's probably the best example, because it is you can go block to block and the prices change significantly depending on where, what block you're in. And that's the way with a lot of cities. So, we have a lot of density. So what investors were doing, where they were buying, and I'll just give you some examples. They were buying, let's just say, a house for $9,000, and they were putting $20,000 into the house or $30,000 into the house. And then they were getting, the rents were based on, the voucher program was based on how many bedrooms, a lot of times, not where it is or what the rents are as competitive rents. So if it was a 3-bedroom, maybe that allowed $1,300 or $1,400 a month. And it was kind of like citywide. It really didn't matter where. That was just kind of like a standard guide. And then they came up with this idea that they're like, well, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't just give them a base flat rent. Maybe we should break it down into zones or areas or whatever. Maybe we should make them provide us with comps. like if it wasn't the voucher program, what would somebody pay a month to be here? And then they realized that it was a lot less than what they were dishing out. So then they adjusted it and said, look, if it's in this area and you give us the comps, and we're going to pay you based on comps. And that's kind of where it is right now. So I wouldn't think that they're just dishing out, there's probably a lot of things broken and, in every aspect of, the system where people take advantage of it, but a lot of people need it, and that's what it's geared for. But I can tell you here in Baltimore, when I interviewed Marcia, what was it, 25-year backlog?
Mm-hmm.
Melissa,
Oh
you
my
were on
gosh.
the interview with me.
Yeah, it was, I wasn't on the interview, but one of our agents
Ruth
was. But yeah, Ruth was. Yeah, but I was present for it. And yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly long time. And she was saying, even by the time that 25-year passes, some people don't even need or qualify for the housing voucher program at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I mean, 25 years later, their kids are grown, they're on there. I mean, so that was how crazy it is. But yeah, so I think that the bigger issue that we had isn't so much the welfare programs as the stimulus that the government printing money and just giving out money over the pandemic. And, I think that really put a lot of money. I mean, look, we've seen bank accounts. We've done shows where we've pulled up savings accounts, on the Fred charts. And I mean, savings accounts went through the roof during COVID because they were making more money on unemployment than they were making at their jobs. I think for 7 weeks or something, the federal government kicked in another $600 or $700 a week.
Yeah.
I know people that, took off and went, on the vacation properties and basically for a month and a half while they were getting paid to, way more money than what they were making at the regular job. So I think a lot of this has come from that. But on the flip side of it, these landlords are in big trouble. They're in big trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much going on right now because everything's going up. Taxes, they're not landlords. If they don't live there, they're not protected by the homestead tax credits. So they're not, cushioned on a phased in value for tax purposes like owner occupant would. So their tax bills are going up. Insurance bills are doubling. I had one property of mine that's a rental, was $1,400 a year for insurance for a crazy, amount of coverage, like a couple $1 million, and umbrella and all kinds of stuff, liability insurance, in case somebody slips and falls, whatever. That doubled to $2,800 with less coverage in one renewal period. So it forced me to go out and reshop everything. This is just one example. Tax bills have come in. Utility costs are going up. So these landlords, their repair costs are going up. I mean, for them to fix things now is ridiculous. And so, it's.
Well, a lot of the landlords don't want to be landlords anymore. I mean, we're
selling them.
Yep. And they've had it. They've done what they needed to do, and they're just not in it anymore. So we've got some more questions here.
Then I'm going to show you guys, share my screen with you and show you some things. So let's take some questions.
Yeah, we got Lexi. Hello. Thank you so much for the question. Am I seeing some FOMO in this Northeast market? This past week, I noticed more deals and I am sad about it. LOL.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that's what's happening. And one of our comments was, how long he's been waiting, 2 years to buy a house. What happened was these buyers were sitting on the sidelines because they were like outbid. They didn't have mom or dad that could write them a check for $50,000 or $70,000 in cash to come in over ask or over appraised value. Insanity. Changed our market, right? And until the stock market started doing poorly, then we saw mom and dad say, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know whether I should be doing this because we're still only in our 50s and 60s. And, we don't want to outlive our money. So, we're writing checks to kids, not saying that, help your kids if you can. But a lot of people didn't have that. And, so they had to go and compete on their own, and their jobs, the student debt is high. And these are just some of the things that we're seeing. They're coming out of college, they're getting good jobs, and they're renting, and they can pay the mortgage, but they don't have any cash. So they couldn't compete, and then investors were buying up to a third, 33, 34% in Texas. In some neighborhoods, 33, 34% of the sales, single family sales, were investors, big companies, insurance companies buying, Wall Street type of companies buying these houses, right? Competing with buyers to turn them into rentals. So these buyers were just like, what am I going to do? I can't compete. So they backed off and sat on the sidelines waiting for the crash. Well, the Fed started hiking rates. 7 out of 8 meetings last year, they raised rates faster than they've ever done in history. So these buyers were like, well, cool. The house prices are coming down. Now the mortgage rates are double. I still can't afford it. So they're sitting there again saying, what do we do? And now, I mean, look, I'm not trying to be depressing here, but now, guys, what we're looking at is we see like JP Morgan Chase on the sidelines, billions of dollars, ready to buy houses, ready to jump in, with cash, waiting for the market to fall apart. So it's like, so now what's going to happen if we do finally see this crash? And I think it's coming. What we're talking about here is it's not coming yet. But I think at the end of the day of this thing, we're going to have a major downturn.
What are your thoughts on that, though? So have you changed your thoughts on timeline-wise? What are you thinking now? Seeing what you're seeing, you're out in the field, all the day, daily. So has your thought changed on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked by when we rolled into the holiday season, before the end of December, I was looking at the market saying, man, this thing is unfolding. It's unfolding. And it's a good time to show that. Joe, maybe you could pull up the NAR Mid-Atlantic. No. Was that me sharing my screen? I don't want to do that. Let's see. There we go. Joe's got it all lined up for us. So I'm going to need to put my glasses on for this. But anyway, we'll kind of go over this a little bit. So this is a Mid-Atlantic snapshot. Okay. So these regions that we're talking about here are the Philadelphia Metro, Baltimore Metro, Washington Metro, Central Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia Panhandle, the Maryland Eastern Shore, the Del Mar Coastal, which includes the Delaware coast, Southern Maryland, and North Central Virginia. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of these stats, but this is what I'm talking about that we were going into in December. This is December's stats, guys, and I apologize for this for our industry. I mean, we're not like the stock market. You can't look at things up to the second and see where things are trading. We have nothing to go on to a site or anything of that nature that can tell us up to the day, up to the minute, what is happening with housing prices. So we have to wait. We're looking at backward looking data. We have to wait for these associations, these MLSs, to report and give the updates. And it usually takes about 2 weeks before we can see the month that recently ended. But so as we're now into January, we're looking at some stats. This is Mid-Atlantic combined. So closed sales in December were down 38.4%. A median sales price was up, basically a half a point from the year before, which shows that prices are coming down. Median days on the market shot up 7 days, year over year on average. New pending sales were down 31.8%. New listings down, almost 26%. But the key here, guys, is that this is the important thing: the months of supply. And this is what is majorly broken. Now, we saw in November, what would appear to be a strong buyer's market coming, right? I mean, it was roaring, man. It was, if you would have said, it couldn't be any more bearish. I mean, it was roaring into disaster for the end of the year. We were saying, oh my gosh, here it comes. So months of supply, 1.27. It's terrible. It's terrible for buyers. And then we're not even talking about, it's like this job market report, right? They're like, oh, it's 1.7 jobs for every person. Yeah, but what's the job? They don't talk about, is it a job that pays the bills? Is it a job that anybody wants to do? I mean, look, there are jobs out there. God bless these people that are doing jobs that most people don't want to do. But when we look at month supply and we look at, oh, great, we've got 1.27 months of supply. Well, what about the places that people don't want because it's so distressed and needs so much work that they can't even get a loan? So when we're looking at data, it's skewed, right? Or you could say screwed. But months of supply, 1.27 months of supply, that was up almost 60% in a year in this Mid-Atlantic market. Showings down 40%. So, Melissa, when we were going into this, you can take that down, Joe. When we were going into this market into December, I was thinking it was coming on strong. Then we hit January. After the new year, I think people quickly adjusted to the interest rates. They started buying into, well, just buy now, do an ARM rate, do an adjustable rate. You've been waiting so long, you've been waiting 2 years, just dive in. And I think that is one of the things that has gotten us into this jackpot that we're in. So I can share my screen if you want to pull up another question, Melissa. Oh, well, let me answer your question. I don't think I did that.
No, you didn't. Not really, because you were saying, and if my memory serves me correctly, but I remember you saying definitely within 12-month period of time, it was going to be crashing, maybe 12 to 18 months. But at that point in time, we were going to be truly we were going to be feeling it. We were going to be seeing dramatic things, foreclosures, everything was going to be kind of falling apart at that point. And now it's different. It's a different vibe. Different things are happening. The buyers are still highly competitive. So I want to know your thoughts.
Yeah. You're pixelating. Am I pixelating or are you pixelating?
I don't know. Yeah. Am I pixelating?
Do I look clear?
Joe? You look clear to me.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fading on us.
Okay.
Yep. Joe, maybe you can pipe in. Who's having technical difficulties here?
It is Melissa. Okay. She looks a little clearer now. But Todd, you're good to go. Now?
All right. Okay. It's the guy behind the curtain, man. It's Joe. Joe's with us. He's the guy that's really responsible for all this, guys. We would be nothing without Joe. He is our just awesome content director. But anyway, Melissa, I think that it's still coming. I don't think that we're helping our cause. I think that as we start to see these reports look, the National Association of Realtors is reporting, I would imagine, to the Fed. They're seeing firsthand, what's happening in the financial markets. Real estate's a big financial market. Real estate is a huge indicator in our, inflation. So I think that we're not really helping the cause as far as Jay Powell laying off the throttle coming up here. I think January 31st, they're meeting. The first days of February is going to tell a big story here. In 3 weeks, we're going to know, like, whoa, is the Fed going to pivot? Everybody pivot. I mean, I don't even want to use the word anymore. I think pivot has now become a bad word. And I would not want to be the Fed, the chairman of the Fed, because I think it's not a win-win. You can't win here. So if you pivot and you come off of the interest rate, we're going to go skyrocketing back into prices. So, we're seeing big layoffs, but the more I talk to people, they're hiring, they lay off and they hire. I know companies that are laying off half their staff and oh man, the sky's falling, and 2 weeks later they're rehiring again because they're adjusting, and perhaps they're trying to hire for less money, but making those kind of adjustments. But people are still spending money. We've yet to get these holiday reports, retail reports to see, where spending has been. But we've seen Amazon laying off. We've seen, them closing warehouses, distribution facilities. But I think that the Fed is going to tell the story here very soon in the next couple of weeks as to where the housing market goes, because it affects our bond market, right? The overall economy, and mortgage rates kind of follow that 10-year treasury bond. And, if we see where those bond rates go up, traditionally, so do mortgage rates, because why go into a 30-year mortgage commitment for a lesser rate in a market that they could get more money for a mortgage if they just hold back and then invest in that as the rates go up. So I think that we're still going to see this market crash.
Mm-hmm.
I still think we're going to see the housing market crash. I think that the spring is going to be a wake up. I think what's going to happen is sellers are watching right now, and they're seeing that houses are still closing or going into pending status here. And I'll show my screen here, and just kind of show you what I've pulled up here. But this is a market here. Melissa, can you see that?
I can, yeah.
All right. So, guys, this is one of the counties here. This is Howard County in Maryland. We have an office here in Howard County, one in Baltimore County. But this Howard County market here, and I pulled up to $500,000 in price. I just wanted to show you, and I have this kind of sorted. There's 86 here that are currently in pending status, and up to $500,000. It's a kind of a higher priced market. So there isn't a whole lot less than $500,000 anyway. But I just want to tell you that, here we are. You can see this DOM, days on market column, is what I'm really looking at. And you can see these price points, and these are the days on market. And as we get, there's 25 per sheet. So we're in the 50, 40 of the, half of these, almost half,
Mm-hmm.
are 10 days or less on days on market. And, we can just randomly pick one of these things and see what we have here. But 48 photos. This is an N unit townhouse, 4-bed, 3.5 bath, and tax assessed value $362,733. So, there's not much of a gap between the tax assessed value and the list price. But I mean, it's still, it's probably priced right, but my gosh, 5 days. it's priced right now, but what's going to happen next year? But again, I just wanted to show you guys, what we're seeing with days on the market. It's ridiculous. So as long as we're seeing these, days on the market like this, we're not going to see prices come down. So this is what I think. I think that the sellers are watching this, and the agents are going, well, things are still selling in 10 days or less. They're going under contract. So the sellers are like, okay, they were holding back. They're like, well, cool, let's get our house ready for the market. So I think what's happening is these sellers are now preparing, because they were prepared to bunker down. But I think now that they're seeing, well, this market's not too bad, interest rates are high, and people are still buying in 10 days or less, I think that they're getting this false sense of security. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think as we get into March, April, we're going to see a big influx of inventory. We're going to see the interest rates stay high. And at that point, I think we're going to start to see where buyers, are going to be, not moving as fast, because they're going to have a lot more to look at. So a lot of the market is this. If there's 25 houses in your market that a buyer can look at, okay, and they it's going to take them time to go see 25 houses. They're not going to do it in one day. It's going to happen over the course of a week. So what's going to happen is they're going to say, well, we've got a bunch of houses to choose from, not just one or not just two. So what happens is there's two houses on the market. Bing, it hits their alert, Zillow, Redfin, whatever. They say, let's go see it. I got to see it now. They go see it. They put an offer in it and they buy it, or they compete to buy it. Again, if they have 25 houses in that market to look at, they're not going to react like that. So they're going to say, okay, well, if we don't get this one, we've got 5 more or 6 more that we really like, that we favorited, that we hearted, we put emojis to it, we've sent them out. I mean, we like these. So they're not going to be as panicked. And I think that will cool the market down. But I think that rates are going to stay hot. I don't think they're going to come down to 4% like people are hopeful for. But that's what I think. I think by the spring, we're going to start to see it take effect. But right now, we're not. We're not seeing it, not in our market. And I think it's going to crash. I think it's going to crash big time. I think we are in for a round like we haven't seen, a round that we would consider since World War II, right? We have had price appreciation in houses that have followed inflation at normal rates up until leading up to 2006, which was the peak before the major crash. That housing crash, the worst since World War II, taught us 2 things. The housing market can go down because up until that point, it was permanence of investment, rock solid deal. You couldn't lose if you were lucky enough to buy a home. It was the American dream. Still is, but is fading fast. If you ask somebody in 2006 whether they were happy about buying the American dream, if they lost it due to were one of the hundreds of thousands that lost their home due to foreclosure, or ones that couldn't see any appreciation or come out even at a break-even point until last year, 2006 until 2022, if they sold their house, they would have sold it for less than what they bought it in 2006. Do I think that's a good deal? No. Right? Do I say that's an investment? No. Now, it's been an investment to your family. It's been stable. It's been a great place. So I'm talking financial, not talking about life here, because it is, people, they're living their lives. My point is financial investment, right? So now we've rebounded, accelerated, hit new peaks. I think this would be round 2 in history since World War II of the housing market tumbling. And I think people that have bought in the last year or two, it's going to be a couple of years again, maybe a decade before they'll be able to sell at where they paid and come out even. Now, if you're staying there forever, it doesn't matter. Right. But I think it's still coming. I don't in any way, shape, or form. I don't have a crystal ball. I could be 100% wrong. But from being in the market in one aspect or another since 1989, I've been serving the housing market. It's a long time. So I feel, it's still coming. Anyway, let's take a couple more questions, guys. We appreciate you tonight hanging out with us. We have 420 people on here right now, guys. Thank you so much. If you like the video, you can let this podcast, you can let Melissa and I know by hitting that thumbs up. At least let us know that you're appreciating what we're doing here. And also, if you're a first timer, you haven't subscribed to us yet, we encourage you to do so. Subscribe to our channel. We post about 3 times a week to try and keep you updated on everything real estate. If you're checking us out online, it's a little embarrassing right now. Our website hasn't been updated in a while because we're working on a brand new website. So we have more agents that have joined us in the last, several months. They're not reflective on our site right now, but we have a really cool website that's going to be launched. It's going to be more like a program. You'll be able to connect with agents all over the country on it. So we're definitely, if you're interested in real estate, follow us. You'll also, we'll have online courses as well, very affordable courses, for buyers, sellers, get real, down to the nitty gritty, teach you guys how to some of the inside, tricks of the trade that, we've developed over decades of serving the housing market. But anyway, so let's take a couple more questions before we sign off here.
Absolutely. We've got vital signs. Todd, jumping on late. Have you changed your view of the housing market based on your recent client buyer experience?
I not long term, not not on a macro as to whether I think what the market, like I just said, I think that we are going to see the housing market still. We're going to see a fallout, and we have a lot of new inventory that builders are the first to kind of take the hit. When we looked at 2006 being the peak of the market at that time, before what we say is the 2008 crash, it was a bloodbath by 2011, 2012. So we're talking 5 or 6 years into it. This is a slow moving process. But I do believe, that we will see some major correction.
Mm-hmm. How about this one? We've got Rick kind of diving in a little bit to talking about that new construction. But do you think now is a good time to buy new construction? I'm seeing a lot of builder incentives.
Yeah. New construction, you have to be very careful with new construction. What I've seen lately is a lot of shoddy craftsmanship. So, you're going to buy a house that, you're probably going to have to do a lot of customization or repair work, that at least quality repairs. With that being said, the risks of buying new construction is depending on how long, where you're buying into that subdivision. If it's a newer subdivision, you can get the best deals because, they're making their profits, the most of their profits, ideally, as they're closing it out. The last couple that are sold, that's where the bulk of the profits are. So they're trying to sell units in a newer subdivision. You can probably get some good incentives, some good buy downs on interest rates, some good add-ons. They will do that before they reduce the price in most cases, especially if you're buying into it midway or towards the end of the build, their subdivision, because what happens is they're going to upset a lot of buyers if they start dropping the price $50,000, $60,000, $100,000. That's kind of the last thing that happens. Most of it is incentives. But understand that you may not be able to sell that house for what you have in it if you need to sell in 4 or 5 years. So yes, you can get more incentives now with new construction, but you got to look at the quality, look at the reviews of the builders and talk to some of the neighbors. I had a client of mine bought new construction. It was a fight. Melissa, you know this. I mean, it was disgusting. It was disgusting.
Messy.
Because all they cared about, this is a big builder, all they cared about was getting to the settlement table. And the house was a disaster as far as it wasn't done. Quality, there were a lot of things that needed to be corrected. We did a independent inspection, which I encourage you to do. It got so bad. I mean, they were bullying my clients so bad. My clients were afraid they were going to lose, $60,000 in deposit money. And what happened was we ended up settling, and they did come back, but they've changed the carpet because they put a bad manufacturer in. The carpet guy that came back said, "Oh my gosh, we never can make this carpet look right because, now it's going to be replaced for the 3rd time." They bought it in the summer, moved in the summer. So not even a year, carpet's going to be replaced 3 times. The first time when it was built, the second time weeks later after they moved in, and now a 3rd time. But my point is that they have now talked to the other neighbors, and the one neighbor has to move out. The repairs are so bad that they have to move out, but they're not paying to move their furniture. Now, can you imagine buying almost $1 million house? And the repair work is so bad that you have to move out of the house. All they cared about was getting a settlement. Now it's so bad you have to move out of the house, but they're not going to pay to have your furniture moved out. They're going to put it all in the center of the room, do a lot of the work and stuff like that. So you're going to have all these strangers in your house, and almost $1 million house. Actually, I think this particular house was over $1 million. And, and now they're not going to pay to move your furniture, but you have to move out and go to a hotel. They're going to pay for your hotel. You want your stuff in a house with a bunch of strangers, contractors coming in and out? I'd be freaking livid. So
Yeah.
I've been a home builder. I've built houses, not on a mass scale like these major tract builders. I've been a small scattered lot builder, minor subdivision, kind of more custom builds, higher quality spec building where, I didn't have a buyer until after it was done. But be careful. Be careful.
And let's
Take two
just talk
more.
about the market really close and really quickly. And I know that this is again Maryland specific, but I am curious. Luz Montalvo. I'm longing to move to Frederick area in Maryland. Do you suggest I wait till perhaps April or May?
So Frederick has become one of the kind of sub markets to DC. It's very hot. It's very booming. There's a lot going on. I mean, they're building like crazy. It's one of the higher tax counties in the state. It's a great county. They've got an awesome downtown district, historic district. It's fun. A lot of restaurants, bars, great lifestyle. It's a fun place to be. Should you wait? If I was buying and I didn't have to buy right now, I mean, look, I'm in sales, right? I would love to tell you buy, but I would say if you can wait, I think the deal's better pricing's coming, but depends on what you're looking for too. So if you're looking for that, in that hot community, that hot market, you may not see big price reductions. So if you're looking at, let's just say, and I don't, if you're still on, maybe you can tell me what price point you are, but let's just say you're in the 650 to 750 range. The difference is going to be maybe 50 grand. So are you willing to wait for another $50,000 if you see exactly what you're looking for? I don't know what your financial situation is. Some people are like, 50 grand's a vacation. I just talked to somebody today that spent $25,000 on a vacation and his kids were sick the whole time. So, that sucked. That was 25 grand down the tubes. They couldn't even, and it was all in that Southwest stuff that you guys hear. They got stuck where they were. They couldn't get flights out. The hotel kicked them out because the resort kicked them out because they were busy and they needed the room, and it was a nightmare. But my point is they just spent 25,000. So if you spent 50 grand more than you should have, and you can afford to do so, maybe it's 2 years vacation for you. So if you find a place, buy it. Frederick's hot.
Yeah.
Frederick's hot. I don't see that being Frederick, Howard County, Montgomery County. These are hot markets where we're seeing very little price movement. And it's that DC submarket or military. I mean, we get a lot of military here. Plus we have NSA, locally, and a lot of people, a lot of, high paying jobs, Johns Hopkins, applied physics lab. I mean, we had some big, big employers here in Maryland. So that kind of keeps things, we're in like a microcosm here, where other areas may be crashing harder, but we crashed one of the hardest in the country back in 2006. We crashed one of the hardest in the country, and we were one of the slowest states to come back.
Yep. How about this one, Todd? Todd H. How are people affording these prices when price to earnings haven't risen that much?
Yeah, I mean, salary rates just over the last decade haven't really increased that much. So that's the big problem here. Usually we see a 3 to 5% price appreciation per year in real estate that kind of travels along with, wage growth and inflation. Usually you get that type of, salary increase. But when we're looking at, they say 9% inflation. I think that's a ridiculous number. I think if we really looked at, first of all, don't get me started, then it's too late. But if we really looked at how they pull this data, it's a joke. It's a joke. You don't have to look at the CPI to know that your bank account is going down.
Yep.
Go grocery shopping, for crying out loud. So, when they come out with these numbers, it's like hocus pocus, man, how they pull this stuff, right? So the bottom line is affordability is waning. When we start seeing people getting over 40% debt to income ratio, 50% debt to income ratio, you start seeing these credit card bills. And I'll say this before we sign off. Banks are so freaking, there's a lot of greed going on, right? I have a really good idea, right? Let's get people in credit card debt and jack their rates. Isn't that a great idea? Hey, we were okay enticing them with these low credit card fees, interest rates, to get them to spend money. And now that the economy sucks and they're paying more and these people are financing their groceries and their fuel to get back and forth to work, they can't afford to pay it off now. And now they're whacking them with 30% interest. 20%, 24% credit card fees.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So now we've got people that they're in more debt than they've been in a long time, decades. So we're looking at that. And now rents are high. We have seen millions of millennials move back home. We're seeing multi-generational housing become a big thing now because people are like, I can't afford it. And then we get comments where they're like, well, you can't afford it because, you failed. That's not true in a lot of cases, right? It's not, you can't say because a 30-year-old moves back home that they maybe had something to do with it. You can't just blanket that and comment cruel, comments like that. People go through a lot of things. When we see millions of millennials moving back home, millions, that's a problem, guys. That means our young people aren't able to survive on their own. And, but anyway, guys, we love you. We thank you so much for hanging out with us on a Tuesday night. We appreciate all your comments. Keep them coming.
I know there's so many that we couldn't even get to, but we're so appreciative. And our email is always open to you, ts@saxrealty.com. I know a lot of you had area specific questions. And please, if you need agent help, please reach out and we will connect you with a very qualified agent in that area that's going to be able to serve you the way you need to be.
And guys, if you're a buyer out there right now, the best advice I can tell you is calm down, slow down. Don't think, look, I'm talking to you like I would talk to my kids, right? Or my best friends. Don't get caught up in it. Know when to back out. And one of the famous things that I like to say one of the favorite things I like to say to my buyers is, look, we need to set a top end, right? So we need to know that at the end of the day, when you're putting in an offer on a house, when is it okay to walk away? Because you get excited. So let's just say that the house is priced at $400,000, for example. You set a price and say, you know what, I would be willing to pay. I would pay $400 or I would give them $405 and not a penny more. And what I say to them to establish this is I say, if you wake up tomorrow and you found out that you lost the house for $1,000, would you be upset? If they say yes, I say, well, then we think about it, right? If they say, nope, Todd, that's it, I'm happy with that. If I knew I lost it for $1 more than my offer, I'd be good with it. Then stick to it. Don't second guess yourself. Keep coming back to the well. Set your boundaries, set your lanes, stay in them. You're going to find your house, guys. You're going to find your house. You're going to find what you want. Make sure that you can afford it before you do. Make sure you've got 6 months after your down payment and your closing costs, 6 months of money in the bank. If you don't have it, save money. Save money. Be patient. You'll win in the long run. Have a nice night. Until next time, guys, we'll see you soon.
See you soon.